Good morning, and thank you for joining us here at West LA Tech Fair. This morning we're going to have a workshop on measuring student learning and creating assessments to determine how their critical skills have been improved as a result of our teaching. This is an overview workshop. We'll touch upon several techniques, strategies, and definitions of what we, as instructors or facilitators, what we want to accomplish in creating instruments to determine whether or not our instruction has had an impact in improving our students' critical thinking skills. So let's get started. As I'm stating here, critical thinking skills have been determined as higher order skills. They're more than the memorization and the rote learning that are accomplished with like you're learning your times table or learning how to spell. And so it involves, moving what you know, moving it around, shaping it, coming up with something different, creating something out of disparate bits and pieces. The more different the bits and pieces are, and the more distant the location of those bits and pieces of data are, the more critical thinking is required to put them into a format that makes sense to an outside observer. Because not only is it assembling all of this information and putting it into a format, but it's also communicating the results of your efforts to other viewers. This creation we call artifacts, and this could be anything from a video to a audio presentation to a painting to a collage. Any of these and more could be the artifact that is used to demonstrate a mastery of the topic at hand. I'm sure you're all familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, and we see that the first, the foundation blocks of the pyramid, these are low order thinking, the knowledge, the comprehension, the application. It's when we get into the higher order items, the analysis, synthesis, evaluation. These are the higher order thinking skills that we're needing to convey to our students in order for them to be competitive in this new global economy. And this is basically what we're doing. We want to prepare our students to compete not just around with the people in the neighborhood, in the community, or in the city, or in this case, even in the country. We have to compete. We have to prepare our students to compete with people around the world. For even though it's a growing pool of opportunities and jobs, there's a even faster growing pool of applicants for those jobs. And the key thing about these jobs is they're going to require critical thinking as well as collaboration skills. This class isn't going to talk about too much about collaboration, but we are going to look at how do we put things together. How do students in this information age, how do they get bits of data and turn it into knowledge, turn it into a usable artifact that solves a real-world problem? This guy it's a paradigm shift. We're going away from the factory model that Ford created for schools with the bells ringing and the signal change of classes, everybody in a row, and everybody gets the same answer to the problem, and if you got the same answer, then you're right. Well, outcome of that was the bubble test, and we have folks teaching to the test. The problem is the real world is not a bubble test. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, but the real world is not going to be a multiple choice situation. It's going to be multiple scenarios, and those scenarios will not be presented on a piece of paper. Those scenarios are going to be garnered from events that are occurring, and they're occurring rapidly and in real time. And we have to come up with solutions to them. Our students will have to come up with solutions to those problems. We have to come up with creative solutions, and we have to gather the information to do that from a wide variety of sources, and we have to validate that information. And these are the skills that we need to convey to our students so that they will be successful in this new reality. There was a study done by the American Psychological Association, the Delphi study, and what it did was they came up with a definition for critical thinking. Okay. Critical thinking is a process of purposeful, self-regulatory judgment. Key there is self-regulatory. Unlike the standard class where you sit in there for 45 minutes or however long, and you do a specific set of exercises with everyone doing the same thing at the same time, in critical thinking, you are actually on your own. You are on your own, or you're working with a small group, and you have to make your own decisions. You have a problem, and sometimes you have to create your own question. All right, it may be that you're given the question, or you create your question. You look at a situation and say, maybe this could be better. Maybe we can come up with something different. It gives reason, consideration to evidence, context, conceptualization, methods, and criteria. Those are the definitions of critical thinking that the American Philosophical Association, came up with for their definition, and it is basically the context through which we're going to continue on in this workshop. We're going to look at mechanisms to assess our students' mastery of these concepts in improving their critical thinking skills. In California, we've got this CCTST, which is a replacement, or it will be a replacement for the bubble, the standardized tests that all students take. The standardized tests up to date have been a bubble test. You multiple choice, you fill in the answer. There's been some essays, but predominant portion of was you fill in the answers. The new testing is very different. You have to manipulate bits of information or bits of data to formulate a response to a scenario. One of the things might be you might have a multiplication problem, or at the heart of the issue might be a multiplication problem. Well, rather than just giving even in a word test, rather than saying that there are 5 people, each of whom has $4, how much do they have together? You may have a graphic that demonstrates a similar situation, and you have to then manipulate the pieces on that graphic and create the answer so that you don't have a bubble, one of the multiple choice answers of 20. You may have a column of numbers 0 to 9, and you have to grab the 2 and then grab the 0 and put that in the answer column, and that's the answer. So you have to work with skills on several levels just to respond to the question. Again, in this thing, any specialized information needed to respond correctly is provided within the question itself. You have to not only read the question, but you have to understand it and interpret the question and look at all of the material contained within that question, because within that is the answer, or the elements that will be needed to create the answer. We're going to take a look at a typical here's a sample question. I hope you can read this. Okay, I'm going to quickly, in case it's small on your screen. A scientific study compared two matched groups of college women. The women in both groups were presented with information about the benefits of a healthy diet and regular exercise. The women in one group were paired up with one another and encouraged to work as two-person teams to help each other stick with the recommended healthy regimens of smart eating and regular vigorous exercise. The women in the other group were encouraged to use the same recommended regimen, but were also advised to work at it individually rather than with a partner or teammate. After 50 days, the physical health and well-being of all women in both groups were evaluated. On average, the women in the first group with teammates showed a 26-point improvement in measures of cardiopulmonary capacity, body strength, body fat reduction, and sense of well-being. On average, the women in the other group, encouraged to work as individuals, showed a 17-point improvement on those same measurements. Using statistical analysis, the researchers determined that the probability that a difference of the size that occurred, that a difference of this size had occurred by chance was less than 1 in 1,000. So that's the information that's given to the test taker. Here are the questions. If true, these verses would tend to support which of the following assertions? Now, so we've got 5 assertions. Okay, there's no true false. The information to make the determination is contained within the question. Which one would it be? Okay, the person has to, the test taker has to assess the information included in there. They have to look at each of the questions and see, does the information presented support the contention presented in each of the questions. The only thing that we don't have in here is there is no presentation of a finished artifact. The artifact would just be selecting the correct answer, and there is no evaluation of whether the validity of the information presented. It's assumed that this information is valid. But this is a typical assessment of critical thinking skills, and this is what's going to be presented to grade school students in California starting in 2016. It was presented in 2015. However, it was not mandatory. It will start to count in 2016. Okay. Okay. Now, one of the nice things about the world in which we live is that it's a mobile world. Everyone has a phone. Everyone has, we call them smartphones, but they are going to be the standard phones. There really won't be any phones that are not smart. You know, they'll all be smartphones, and which means they'll all have access to the internet. They will all be part of the globally connected world, and there have been a number of apps which are small applications. Like, for example, Microsoft Word is an application. You wouldn't have the full-blown Word as an app, you might have something that allows you to write a letter, write a message, and do some editing on it, but it's on a very limited basis. We've got a number of apps that are available to help students facilitate the development and perfection of critical thinking skills. I've listed several of them here. They are both for the Apple platform as well as the Android platform, and there are more coming out every day. And again, this allows the students to actually be working on their skills, and as an instructor or facilitator, we can direct our students to some of these apps to help them to develop their skills. Critical thinking skills involve more than just filling in a bubble. It's not a multiple choice assessment. Where it can be multiple choice, you have to evaluate a number of different items. And a full-blown critical thinking assessment, which would end in an artifact, the production of an artifact, would have several steps that the students need to take in coming up with a final product. They have to define, assess, evaluate, manage, integrate, create, and communicate. And they need to do those steps in order to come up with an accurate product that really demonstrates a mastery of the topic subject at hand. And this is especially true, again, in this information age. We're going to look at the definitions of each of these steps next. Define. Okay, the student or the test taker has to understand and articulate the scope of an information problem. Now there's a two-way communication. The student has to interact with the instructor or facilitator to make sure that the question being posed is clear. It's got to be unambiguous. It has to be again, we're going to distinguish clear, concise, topical research questions from poorly framed questions. In other words, we don't want to find out, why is it warm outside? We need something more specific in terms of a question, and the students could ask the questions, and then again, as a facilitator or the professor, you could ask yourself, well, is this vague? How can we make this less vague? And excuse me. One of the things is that we want to do some preliminary information searches, and basically what you do that is to frame the research statement. So, in other words, the facilitator will create a topic, might put out a topic, and the student's goal is to come up with a specific research question. Access. When we talk about access is, okay, now we have this question or this research statement. Where do we find the information that we might need? Actually, where do we find the data? And the difference between data and information is information is data within a context. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's data. Okay, $1,458 per week is information. In other words, it's data within a particular context. In this context, it's money. Okay. What we want to do is, with the internet, there's just a ton of information. I mean, it's just about any question that you want can be answered on the internet if you know how to do a search, how to do proper searches. Um, you have to combine different elements of the search in order to get down and zero in on the topic that you that you need an answer to, that you or the student needs an answer to. One of the things that we do is using internet search resources and search engines. There are dozens of search engines that are available, some more effective than others. One of the ones that I refer my students to is Google Scholar. Google Scholar provides research information that is peer-reviewed. Many times students come and they'll present information. And where did you get that information? Oh, I found it on Google. Well, okay, who wrote it? How did that person become an expert? How do you know that this information is true? How do you know that the person that wrote it was not writing it out of self-interest? These are things that many of the students don't realize. If they see it, they believe it's true, and in many instances it is not. Let's see if we can come up with an example. I don't know how well this is going to play.
To perform this task, the test taker must develop a search strategy to locate information within a database. First, he needs to select an appropriate database. Then determine what criteria will provide the most efficient search for the specific information he seeks. The more accurate the search terms, the more easily he can find those results that will let him answer the customer's query.
Okay, what I'm going to do be doing is at the end of this workshop, if you'll give me your email addresses, I will send you a copy of this presentation, because these examples, they are active links, and you can hear them. You can hear the narrator speaking. I'm not so sure that you are able to hear it clearly during this presentation, because it's coming through CCC Confer, in addition to the site that it's actually located on. So, as I said, but basically what this talk in terms of access, it's really validating the information, sources of information, and looking at, where you're getting the information. You have to determine there are, in addition to the internet and web pages, databases, discussion groups, emails, online descriptions, print media. There are all kinds of different ways that you can gather information, and the student needs to be aware that they don't want to stop at one location, one stop when they're looking for information. They want to find different sources, and it may be that the different sources might give you different information, and then you have to determine which is more valid, and you look at the validity of the sources of the information to determine which one is more appropriate to answering your question. Evaluate. Now, just because you find something, just because a student finds something in their digital search, doesn't necessarily mean that it's valid. They need to determine the authority. Okay, what makes this person an expert? Who is the author? First of all, you have to determine who is the author. Many things that you'll find on the internet do not have an author. One of the things, if you do go through peer-reviewed studies or searches, you know the author. One of the things that you'll look at is, well, how many times has this article been cited? Well, if the article has been cited 100 times, the likelihood is that it's pretty valid, because other experts have looked to it and turned to it and used it in their own research. The bias. Does the author have any underlying reason to get you to believe this point of view? In other words, if the author of this is a pharmaceutical company and they're talking and touting the benefits of this new diet drug that they happen to produce, Well, you have to look at this with somewhat of a jaundiced eye, because this author has a vested interest in you believing what they're saying, because then you will probably go out and buy their product. What's the timeliness of it? There is no expiration date on most articles that appear on the internet. And when you do a search, the less something is accessed, the further it falls back in the order of retrieval that the search engine uses. They use the various algorithms, and one of the things they look at is how often somebody has referred to it. But if something is referred to a lot, even though it's old, it still might pop up early in the search engine. So what you need to do is find out what is the date of this. If you're looking at something on computer communications, and the date of the article is 1998, you probably want to discount it somewhat, because technology has evolved so fast, so rapid, so much in the last 17 years that article is probably outdated. What's the relevance? You know, if you're looking at mammals and you've got an article on amphibians, there may not be a whole lot of relevance. You know, yeah, they all have two eyes, but there may not be a lot of relevance. Okay, so you're basically looking at some of the tasks you want. What's the relative usefulness of the web page and the journal articles? You know, whether it contains appropriately current and pertinent information, and deciding the extent to which the collection of resources sufficiently covers a research area. You don't just jump at, or the student doesn't just take the first answer they come up with. They need to cover a wide breadth of options to determine which one is the best option to answer the information query. Manage. Okay, you got all this information coming in. Well, okay, what do I do with it? It's like a pile. It's sitting on your desktop. I know my desktops on some of my computers are really junky. I got all kinds of stuff piled on there. Well, we need to put this. We need to categorize it. We need to organize it. And this is where the manage function of the information search comes in. We have to organize the various things into various folders. Like in your email, you might have a folder for various customers or various clients, or you might have an email for various subjects that you're taking in class, and you would have different things put into different folders. You want to do sorts. You know, that you could use something like Excel to do sorts on various categories and fields. This example, which again it's an example that I don't know if you'll be able to hear if I play it. Let me play it, and if you can hear it, could you just let me know?
In this task, the test taker is expected to organize information according to a classification scheme. He must delete personal emails and save only those emails that pertain to a job search. Since the subject line does not always make the content of the emails clear, and in fact may even be misleading, it is necessary for him to view the contents of the email before making a decision on whether to save or delete it. As in the real world, he can perform these functions in different ways. The methods chosen will not affect the score.
Okay, I'm not sure if you could hear that, but once again, I will send you the presentation, and you can actually hear it on your own computer. But it was basically looking at a method by which an assessment by which the manage function was assessed. The student was tasked with sorting emails in a way to retrieve specific information, and using certain criteria to sort and then retrieve and then categorize those emails. Okay, now we've got all of this information. We've got it in our various organizing areas. Now we've got to integrate it, and this is taking the material that we have, and we have to synthesize, summarize, compare, and contrast information from multiple sources. This is a very key step because we've got all of this material that we've obtained from a variety of sources, different web pages, different print media, different YouTube, whatever we've used to obtain our information. Now we have to put it into a format and into a single format so that we can compare it, combine it, and come up with and make some sense out of it. Some of the tasks might be comparing advertisements. Oh, yeah, that's a great one. We see on TV, as well as on the internet, we see all kinds of advertisements for car insurance. You buy our car insurance and you're going to save $400 over this other company. Well, then you see the same company, the other company, you got AAA saying you could save $300 over Geico. And you have Geico saying, well, you could save $400 over AAA. Well, okay, which one is accurate? Which one makes sense? Because these are assessments that you may be having to make in a business world. I need to cut my expenses, my insurance expenses, and I want to make the best decision. So not only do I want to compare the price, I want to compare the offerings. Make sure that we're comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges. These are some of the things that we need to do when we integrate the information the data that we've gotten. We need to put it into a format where we can compare and contrast the results that we're getting, and put it in a format where we can make an informed decision. Okay. Create. Now that we've gotten the information and we've integrated, we need to create something. Our document that is going to represent what our efforts have been up to this point. We're comparing the prices of insurance with the various features that each of the insurance policies offer, or we're comparing laptop computers with the features and benefits that each of them offer. We're defining features versus benefits. It weighs 3.4 pounds. What's the benefit? Well, it means that it's lighter to carry than something that's weighing 4.3 pounds. Okay. However, this one over here costs $400. This other one costs $250. Does that weigh out? Is it better to have a lighter computer that costs more, or a heavier computer that costs less? These are some of the things that we would put together in creating the outcome or our interpretation of the material that we have gathered. The final step is communicate. We have to disseminate what we've got. Okay, we depending upon our audience, we'll choose a format to make to create an artifact that we can convey what the results of our research has been. Our information search has taken us through a number of sites, a number of areas, and we have been able to assess and evaluate the validity of the information that we've gathered. We've been able to compare and contrast the information from the different sources, and now we're presenting it in a format where you, the reader, can see our results and see the support that we have to make that to have made those evaluations. Okay, that would be the culmination of this information task, and it would truly represent far more than just filling in a bubble, and it's more than just writing a paper. This is something that would be used in a real-world environment, whether it's creating a flyer to advertise to a distinct group of users. In other words, the flyer that we would create to advertise a product to seniors would be somewhat different than the flyer that we would use to advertise to teenagers. Okay, what would be the different characteristics? Doing slide presentations. Maybe not so much slides. We would do maybe a YouTube video. Whatever the artifact that we would use, we would need to be able to create this and then put it in a presentation format where we could disseminate it to our target audience. And in this case, the student's target audience would be we the facilitator, but we'd also maybe want to disseminate it to other students, and the other students can evaluate their colleagues to see the effectiveness of their work. Okay. I know there was a lot that we covered in a pretty short period of time. Are there any questions? Okay. Well, I thank you for attending the session. If you have any questions later on, my email is included on the presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions. If there are no other questions, then thank you for attending, and be on the lookout for any other workshops that I might be conducting, as well as other workshops that are still to be presented in Tech Fair. Thanks a lot. Have a good morning. Bye now.